is finally time. We are right in seed starting season and I can't wait to get my hands in some soil and start planting some seeds. First, if you're new here, hi, my name is Sarah, and me and my family run a suburban homestead here in southwestern Ontario. Last year alone, we grew hundreds and hundreds of pounds of food for our family, as well as some of our neighbors and our extended family members, of course, because we all need to share when there is an abundance. If you want to join in the fun of seed starting this season, please stick around. Today's video is going to discuss how we start our seeds, the products that we use, and when to know if it's the right time to start seeds. So let's go. When we first started growing food, a lot of the seeds that we sowed were sown outside in the gardens once spring was here and the earth was no longer frozen. As we wanted to venture into more and more types of foods to grow, there was things that we learned in regards to seeds starting. Primarily, a lot of them need to be started indoors in order to get that head start before our spring finally arrives. I am going to preface this with why in the world would we want to even start seeds inside? Yes, we can absolutely go to nurseries. Yes, we can support small local businesses that sell seedlings like us. But why am I such a proponent, even though we do sell seedlings, in starting seeds yourself at home, starting your own plants, your own seedlings? Number one, save some money. If you want to be more sustainable, you want to help bring some food to your family at lower costs than what you can find at the grocery store, starting from seed is almost a must. A package of seeds is like $2, $3, $4. It's a lot cheaper, especially considering you can get hundreds and hundreds of seeds in one package. This lemongrass seed, this one pack has well over 100 seeds in it. To go buy 100, stalks of lemongrass at the grocery store, especially being more of like a specialty food here in our area, it's gonna cost you a lot more than what it cost me for this single pack of seeds. Number two, talking about those seeds, you can get endless varieties this way. If you have more of a preference, say for tomatoes that are more sweet than acidic, you have a wide variety of selection if you can grow it from seed. We grow food because we want to eat the food, right? So starting from seed allows you to almost select the produce that you'll be growing based off your flavor expectation. The third reason why I highly stress growing from seed is the sustainability side of it. Gardening shouldn't be expensive, even though marketing would like to make us think it is. It shouldn't be difficult. It shouldn't require these crazy tools, this expensive soil, endless work in order to grow food. Mother Nature made it much more simple than that, even when starting seeds inside. By starting from seed and learning that skill, it also may propel you to save your own seeds from your own garden. So like us, we have had seeds that we have saved for a decade now, and we haven't had to buy them. So we just continue to grow from fresh seed that we save every single year, and that makes our planting nearly free. So let's get into the first thing that I always check. I look at seed packages. So you might go seed shopping. You may send me a message because we do offer a free seed library for across Canada. You want to actually read the seed package, or if you do pick it up from the library, you want to Google that variety and you want to see when it should be planted. For instance, I have a huge stack of pepper seeds that we are going to start, and I just know in our area, starting peppers is great in around February. Peppers just grow a little bit slower than other things, like tomatoes. If I started them now, I'd have an absolute tomato jungle in my house. Peppers need a bit more time, especially if you want a really amazing harvest in around, summer into fall. On the packs of your seeds, depending on the company, it's always written, it just might have different terminology, but it will have like a start indoors date. Start indoors, on this one in particular, it says 8 to 10 weeks before your last frost. To figure out the last frost date, which is always approximate, go to Google, type in your town, type in anticipated, expected, approximate last frost date for 2026, and up it will come. Now I know our last frost date is typically mid to late May. So in and around that time, we will experience our last frost. So that's how you're gonna calculate when to start a particular seed. I know from experience, super, super hot peppers, I'm talking ghost peppers, Carolina Reapers, not jalapenos, okay? Jalapenos are mild in comparison to the super hots. They will take even longer. So I would suggest 12 to 15 weeks for those. They just grow a little bit slower. So I take my calendar, I use my phone, and I'm like, okay, February, start peppers, start herbs that require it, like parsley. On the back of these seed packages, it's a very educated suggestion, but you don't have to listen to it. It's a guideline. So if you end up a little bit late, just expect that, yes, they will catch up, but the harvest might be slightly diminished than what you would have had. If you find that it didn't give you enough time, make note of that for next year. Make sure to write it down. You know what? I'm already gonna pop a calendar reminder for next year to say, I'm gonna start my pepper seeds this particular week. So maybe you want 12 weeks indoors as opposed to 8 to 10. Please don't get upset with yourself if the first year you start trying from seed, it just doesn't work well for you, or you find, oh man, when I bought that seedling at the nursery, I got so many peppers by the end of the summer, but when I did it myself, I only got one, but I started my pepper seed in May when I would normally go to the nursery to buy the seedlings. Again, it's learning the length of time that's needed. Now you've narrowed down what seeds you are going to plant. Now what? Is it as simple as when we were all in kindergarten and we started bean seeds, in like a Ziploc bag and stuck it to the window and watched them grow? Yes, in a sense, it is very simple. The products I'm gonna show you today, some are optional, some I suggest just because of the experience I've had with them. They've grown really well. I will say it's not necessarily the most environmentally friendly products that I'm picking. I wanted this video to really focus on the beginner seed starter. If maybe you've started a handful of seeds, but you want to just learn some tips, tricks, things like that, we can all continuously learn from each other. But I will always respect that sometimes our pocketbook, our wallet, is what determines what's accessible for us. We have 4 kids. I'm not gonna be going out and trying brand new, eco-friendly, top-of-the-line products every single year to grow the majority of our food when I know at a big box chain store here in town that I can get a giant bag of what has worked really well for me for seed starter for $8, especially considering how many seedlings we grow. We grow hundreds and hundreds of seedlings. So we have a great deal of respect to say, you know what, sometimes our wallet speaks and we don't want to make a tomato seedling that we're growing end up costing us $30 to grow a tomato plant when hopefully your goal is similar to ours in regards to being more sustainable and saving money. I have massive respect for those who are trying to be more eco-friendly. If you can do it, please do it. Do it wherever you can. And that's kind of what we've done here. We always do. But again, I know there's going to be some comments from some other growers that are just like, you're using something that contains peat moss. That's not good for the environment. Do your own research on that. I'll discuss why I use this particular seed starter, but do your own research. Some people feel the guidelines that they've put in for harvesting peat out of Canadian peat bogs has been made safer. Other people feel, nope, it should never be touched. Don't touch peat moss. It's detrimental to our environment. You do you. There is no judgment here. We always want to respect one another in the choices that are made. With that said, I'm going to show you exactly what we use and what has worked well for us. Let's start with seed starter. This cost me, I think it was $8.30 after inflation has hit everything. I used to get it for $6, this massive bag. This makes a ton of soil blocks. We do soil blocks, which I'll talk about. This has a ton of soilless seed starter for starting your plants. There is peat moss in it, Canadian grown. Peat holds a lot of moisture. It keeps your seeds nice and moist, so it can help them sprout easier. It's also very light and fluffy, this mix, which allows seeds to come up and germinate a lot easier. I will speak about that in just a moment regarding this other giant bag behind me. The other thing peat does is it actually slightly acidifies it, which is good because that slight acidification, a lot of seeds prefer it for sprouting. So using something like this can actually help speed up your germination just a little bit if we're talking strictly about the acidification side of it. People have been suggesting nobody needs to buy seed starter. It's a marketing ploy. You can just put a seed in a pot of potting soil and it will sprout, just like what happens outside. Your seeds will sprout. Yes, I have done that. I have taken our favorite potting soil, which is over here. It's made by ProMix, another Canadian company. And I have sifted it, because that's what the internet suggests when using potting soil, to sift it to get out those bigger chunks. So it's light and fluffy like seed starter and will allow your seeds to germinate much quicker than if you just planted it straight into potting mix. I did a side-by-side comparison. This was 3 years ago. Really wish I would have filmed it for you guys because I used the same seeds, tomato seeds, which sprout very, very quickly. I had it side-by-side under the same growing conditions, seed starter, as well as sifted potting soil. The sifted potting soil, some of those tomatoes took over 2 weeks to sprout, yet these ones came out no problem. So again, my wallet speaks, the experience I've had speaks. I will always get seed starter. Now this is the brand I rely on. If you find another brand of seed starter, maybe it's on sale, maybe it's peat free and you want to do that, you do you, whatever works, try it. See how it goes for you. Maybe your big box store doesn't have the giant bag, or just maybe you don't need that much. You may have seen in the same area of the store these little doodads, the little pucks. This is the same stuff, the exact same as this. It's just compressed in a little biodegradable wrapper. You take these pucks, you put them in some water, and they expand. And then you put your seed in there, tuck it all in, and it will hopefully grow for you. The concern with these is because it is so compressed and because it does contain peat, this holds a lot of moisture. It can also be a little finicky in the sense that when it dries out, it's a little bit harder to rehydrate it. I find I fight with these a little more. They're great for children. They're great for those who have disabilities, if they have hand dexterity concerns, especially eyesight concerns. These can be helpful, but there's one thing you really need to know. Watch your watering. If you find that when your seedling has grown that it starts to die at the base of the stem and then it just, keels over and it's done, that's called dampening off. A lot of that happens when the soil is just kept too moist. especially at the surface around where that stem meets the soil. So really watch for that. If you do start to see that on some of your seedlings, please cut back on the watering. You can also add a fan in to help circulate that air, okay? Just like outside Mother Nature, adding the wind. The other thing is you actually want to remove this biodegradable wrapper on the side of this when you do go to plant it. So you're either going to plant it outside, or if you were starting, say, a pepper plant or a tomato plant, those are the most common, that's why I discuss those a lot. You're gonna wanna actually transplant this into a pot before it goes outside. It's gonna need some more space. If you keep this wrapper on, the roots, I find, do not establish nearly as well, and the plant can almost become a little stunted. You will end up paying more money to get it in puck form versus bulk like this. This stores well. Just put, an elastic around it when you're done, just like a bag of potting soil, and wait till next year. Let's get more cozy here. I don't buy pots. I think it's such a waste of money. Yes, you might want everything symmetrical. Yes, you might want it to look beautiful on your grow shelves. Yes, you might want a specific color. You do you, that's what you want. I much prefer to reuse containers. So when we first started, I would use the classic like solo cups because we had some of those laying around. Indoors, I much prefer to use tofu containers. We eat a lot of tofu. I drill some holes in the bottom if you guys can see that. I fill it up with a seed starter that's been moistened ahead of time before you put your soil in the pot. Regardless of what you're using, always make sure it's moistened first. Makes it a whole lot easier. If you were to put this right in here, put your seeds in and then water, your seeds are gonna float around every which way. They're gonna get to different depths. Make sure it's moistened first. The other thing I like about these is I don't buy plant labels, but I just write on the edge with permanent marker, and then I take it off every year with some rubbing alcohol. I just wash it off there, a little scrubby brush, and it comes right off, and I can keep doing that. I also like these because they have the lines conveniently, so if I'm going to say half of this will be one type of pepper and half of it will be the other, I can label it right on here. I can just draw a line, divide it up, and write exactly what it is. Make sure to write down what you've planted. I can't stress it enough. Even if it's one single plant, guys, if you're anything like the busy household that we have, if I were to plant even one single tomato plant, there is a good likelihood by the time spring comes where it's safe to plant outside, I would probably already forget what kind it is. So especially if you're trying a new variety, write down the name. We're humans, we can forget things. Write it down. This is especially true if it's your first year growing from seed. You're gonna wanna make sure that when you planted a pepper plant, that it was a pepper plant to come up. There has been times that seed companies have mix-ups. When you're talking about varieties of the same type of plant, the seeds will look the same. And the seedling should come up looking like a pepper seedling, not a cosmos seedling or a tomato seedling or a nasturtium seedling. Knowing what it should look like is very helpful. Google Images is great for that. And again, labeling. So if you had 3 different types of peppers in here and one set of those seedlings just doesn't look like the other, something's probably up. If you're starting things that require an early head start, so anything in February and March that would need starting, you're going to want a grow light. They are not nearly as expensive as they once were. You can even use, if you already have like a fluorescent shop light, you can do that. These are LEDs because we like to save some money on the hydro. And the one thing you're looking for is full spectrum lighting. And typically in like these style, as well as fluorescent, I believe it's either T5s or T8s. That's like a full spectrum kind of color to the light. So it mimics our sunlight more. The reason why I'm saying that, I am sitting in front of this gorgeous south-facing window. I love it all winter long. It makes me feel, especially on a sunny day, that spring is that much closer. This would cause all my plants, if I started them now, to be what's called leggy. They will be spindly, they will be reaching for light because they're trying to get so much more sunlight that the level of our sun right now with the position of the earth and all that, you know, scientific-y stuff that I'm not getting into, it's too far away. The sun is not strong enough right now. So if you do not want to invest in a grow light, you may just decide that peppers are not the thing for you to start. You might want to go to the nursery and that's your one thing that you're gonna buy every year, or you're gonna send me a message and support a small business for some pepper seedlings. However, you can use a south-facing window with the glorious sun for other things. So you could do, come April and May, you could do your lettuces. You could start any of your greens. There's a lot of herbs you could start that way, like basil. You could even do green onions, like spring onions. There's so many more. I'm not gonna sit here trying to ramble off in my head, but there are a lot that you can do with a south-facing window. Would I suggest, again, the things that have to be started like 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks ahead? Not so much. You're absolutely gonna struggle, especially with those ones that are 8 weeks and up. It's gonna be hard for that. The other thing that we have for these are timers. So it keeps me still living regular life without having to worry about, did I turn the light on, did I not? You're gonna want a timer. We just have ones that fit into our plugs that we can program on our phone. And then I can unplug it and use it wherever throughout the year as well if there's something else that I want to run on a timer. Our humidifier, for instance, a fan, it's not tied right to the light. If you see a deal on a grow light that has a built-in timer, I mean, if it's on sale and that's what you can get, do it. The only other suggestion with grow lights, make sure the height is adjustable. So we have ours on chains, that way I can lower it and raise it as needed as the plants grow. These are not the cheapest, but they're not the most expensive either. But again, they're more of an investment than, say, an $8 bag of seed starter. What this does is it provides your soil or your seed starting mix warmth. And it does so by you either placing your container filled with seed starter and your seeds, or again, your little peat pellets, and it will warm that soil to make your seeds think that it's spring. So essentially, it helps these seeds sprout faster. Is it a necessity? Absolutely not. You can have these on a shelf, treat them the exact same way without the heat mat, and it will just take longer in general for those seeds to pop up. If I had to choose between a grow light and a heat mat, because I wasn't able to purchase both, I would absolutely pick the grow light. Reason being, you can always add a bit more time in regards to planting seeds. I find a grow light gives you more bang for your buck because you can use these to grow lettuces and greens all throughout the winter months when your garden is still frozen. Soil blockers. Now, if you followed me for a while, you know I absolutely love these. And this is actually what we use to grow all our seedlings. And even the seedlings that we sell, we do not pot up. We offer them just in soil blocks. So again, more sustainable, no waste. You literally just take the block and you pop it in the ground. Is it a requirement? Absolutely not. Is it something that I would highly suggest if you have goals of being more sustainable, not using a ton of pots, if you grew hundreds and hundreds of seedlings? Absolutely. This is a game changer. I will not go into these today. This is again more for someone who is just starting. And most people don't necessarily start their first ever seed planting adventures with soil blocks. Not to say you can't, it's just these are much more of an investment. They are not cheap, but if gardening becomes your most amazing life skill that you've ever learned and you enjoy it endlessly like we do, well worth the investment. The other thing I will always have running in our grow room, as I've briefly mentioned, is a fan. A fan mimics wind, and that's how, as your seedlings get larger, they get stockier and sturdier. So many people who come here to buy our seedlings, they always comment on how strong the seedlings are, and that's because we run fans. The fans cause them to move. We have it kind of oscillating, and then every, so many seconds the plant will jostle, and that will make it stronger. If you do not have a fan, definitely watch your watering. You do not want to overwater. And if this was a seedling, you can just very gently rub your hands on it, and that will act as wind as well. So say it's out in a greenhouse, you can just do this and it'll help strengthen and make them a little bit stockier for you. You will meet gardeners that will absolutely tell you before you start any seeds, before you start any planting, to give your supplies a bath in some diluted bleached water. What they would do is suggest often like a teaspoon of bleach in a gallon of water, and you rinse all your materials with that to help disinfect, to help remove any harmful pathogens, bacteria that could be detrimental to your plants. Is there anything wrong with doing that? Not in my opinion. If you want to do that, go right ahead. Have I? Never. I am very much one that wants to save on time. I want to save on efficiency. And we actually don't often have bleach in our home. I find it to be a very, very strong chemical. And I just very much limit the use of it. What do I do with all this? I just plant in it again. I rinse it out. Our water, city water is chlorinated, right? That's gotta do something. Some people also use like soap on them. It won't harm your plants. Soap is fine. You can absolutely give your pots, your containers a bath. That's okay. What I will suggest though is the one trouble I find a lot of people run into, whether it's houseplants or seedlings, are something called fungus gnats. And if you've ever had them, you know exactly what they are. They're like these little fruit flies that come around this or come out of the soil around your plants, and they are so annoying. Some people get those yellow sticky traps for them because they're attracted to the yellow and they'll get stuck. Fungus gnats are a total pain. The problem comes from fungus gnats not being the adult flies that are flying around. They're not harming your plants. It's the eggs that they lay and the larvae that come from it. So it's like these little tiny, they almost look like worms. They're clearish white. If you look at the surface of your soil, you'll actually notice it can look sparkly, if I can put it that way, glistening, almost web-like on the top of it. That's a sign that you have fungus gnats. So even if you haven't noticed, maybe you have a ton of fruit flies in your kitchen and you haven't noticed them around your plants or put two and two together, it's a sign that those larvae are there. So those larvae grow into adult flies, and that's what you see flying around. But the larvae will actually eat the roots of your plants. So if you have an immense amount of them, your seedlings can become affected. First thing, don't let the very surface of your soil stay super, super moist. That's where they actually like to lay their eggs. So if you bottom water, which means sticking like this in a container of water and letting it soak up, that is fantastic. Also a fan to help circulate air, keep air flowing so there's not a ton of moisture around that seedling right at the very top. Some people also plant with something called vermiculite, also sand on top. Those are optional. Other people, to help avoid the issue, will actually bake their potting soil. You will see this online. I don't, because it stinks. So unless you want that smell in your house, I don't recommend that. I don't enjoy the thought of putting soil in my oven where I make my bread. Like, no, that's not for me. If you want to go that route, go right ahead, no judgment. But sourdough and dirt don't go very well together in my mind. I have done the whole boil a kettle of water and pour it all over your soil to help remove any, or kill any larvae that could be present. Have I still had larvae come? Yes. So is it fail-proof? No. It's one of those things. So the one thing, again, that's optional, but could be helpful if you've had this issue in the past or if you want to avoid it altogether, is something called mosquito dunks. This is it's completely organic. It's BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, if I'm saying that correctly. It's a type of bacteria that actually eats the larva. It'll it'll just absorb into it and kill the larva. So it's super, super helpful. It does the same for mosquitoes, hence the name mosquito dunks, but it's completely organic and safe. All I do is break off a little chunk of this, let it sit in a watering can for over 24 hours minimum, and then I water my seedlings with that. And it eliminates nearly every fungus gnat issue that I've had. And then we use it outside to help keep the mosquito population down. So again, another one of those optional things, but could be helpful if you find the need. Okay, I had to run and grab something because I totally forgot. What are we gonna do now? What the heck does this have to do with anything? Well, this is now gonna go on my heat mat in my grow room, and it's gonna sit here like this. But the problem is the heat mat is gonna warm this up beautifully so they sprout quickly. However, that can also make the moisture evaporate a lot quicker. So that's where plastic comes in. You've probably seen it on, the black trays that you can get with the humidity dome, they call it, to go over. You can absolutely use that. I'm cheap and I don't like to buy that. So this blue plastic, it's what newspapers are wrapped in when they come to your driveway. It just goes over top, helps to hold some moisture in. The other thing we use often, rice bags. I cut them up, put them over, because that'll still allow some light through to get to the seed, and it holds the moisture in. So you don't have to go out and buy those things to, spend more money to get the same job done. You can use something you've already got. You probably noticed there's no fertilizer around here, and that's because I actually don't fertilize my seedlings. And yep, people are gonna come at me, I know it. A lot of other growers are going to. If you want to fertilize your seedlings, go right ahead. I just don't, for a number of reasons. Again, cost. I don't want to incur any costs that I don't have to. But I also find if I keep our seedlings happy, healthy, but just a little bit hungry, just a little bit, they transition outside a lot easier, and they transplant a lot easier, and they start growing with vigor really, really quickly. If you have, say, a nursery purchased seedling that has been fed synthetic fertilizers since day one and it's almost requiring them, when you transplant that out into your garden and you're not providing that same fertilization that it's used to, it's gonna have trouble adjusting to your garden. So I just prefer to keep mine just a smidge hungry. If they need a boost, I will use compost tea. I'll use our worm casting tea that I make up. If they need like a nitrogen boost, I'll even melt some snow. Believe it or not, snow has more nitrogen in it than rainwater, just a fun little fact. I'll melt it, let it get to room temperature, and then I'll use it for watering. If, however, you decide, nope, I am gonna feed them, by all means, there's nothing wrong with that. My only suggestions are stick with organic. It's just much easier to not overdo it. If you give too much synthetic fertilizer, you have a high risk of burning and harming those plants. So keep that in mind. Also, seedlings don't need much. They're little tiny plants, guys. So you don't need to give them as much fertilizing as you would a plant this size. Okay, so dilute it to help avoid any issues with over-fertilization. What to do after your seedlings start to grow. You are going to have to transplant them one way or another. Soil blocks, you size up. Transplanting, you size up the size of the pot, especially on seeds that are started this early. They are gonna end up running out of space. So that's where potting soil comes into play. When our seedlings are requiring transplanting, I will make another video for you guys so you can grow along with us, so you can see exactly what to do in regards to transplanting. I know people will ask me, my favorite potting soil is ProMix. We get it at Costco. It's cheap for the bale. That's what they call those big bricks of them. You can also just get bags of them. That is our favorite. That's what we use. It grows well for us and it works well with soil blocking. So just so that's out there, so you don't have to wait for the video to see what we get, but that is what we purchase. If you guys have any questions regarding seed starting or gardening in general, please leave them in the comments below. Keep in mind on our Instagram, we do have other videos available, one regarding all our bulbing onion growing from last year, as well as more info about soil blocks. We also post like little updates from our homestead all on our stories over there, so please give us a follow. As always, thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I hope you've learned something and that you yourselves are one seed away from harvest. As always, happy growing.